Happy Saturday morning, Southern Arizona. My name's Sean Campbell. You're listening to the second episode of the Marketing Corner. We had two phenomenal entrepreneurs that are just going to kill it today. Last week we had Steve Nunez, and I was a little bit worried that it was all downhill from there. But we're going to beat that last show. Yes. Steve's is going to like, wow, what was I doing? I was out of my league. No. We have special co-host Candace Eaton from Eaton Photography. How you doing, Candace?
I'm pretty good. How are you, Sean?
We haven't seen each other in a few weeks.
We haven't.
And I'm not going to say I miss you at all. But
okay, you shouldn't.
But it's weird because usually we see each other very often at the Sands, and we just kind of talk business, talk marketing, and congratulations. And trash. About ourselves, trash. No, about nobody. Just
never
ourselves.
About anybody else.
About anybody else but ourselves. So good to see you.
Good to see you,
Thank
Sean.
you for being a part of the show today. And our special guest today, Meredith Martyr, business attorney. This is our first conversation, my first conversation I've ever had with Meredith.
Yes.
So you got
it's
here.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
I was trying not to talk to you too much before the show started because I'm all about authenticity. I'm all about if I upset you live, that's got to be authentic. I want to do it on air.
I'm going to say something offensive. I want to wait until we can get your live reaction.
Exactly.
Make sure that we've recorded it.
Exactly. That way we get it on video and not do that and make a fool out of myself out of thousands of people at one time.
There you go. So, that's the way to do it.
Audience, if you have a question for any one of us, especially Meredith, as we get into the topics of discussion today, please call in 520-790-2040. 520-790-2040. Give us your questions. We have a lot to talk about today, and I'm going to be fascinated. I'm going to be taking a lot of notes. This is going to be very, very educational for any business owner and entrepreneur out there.
Absolutely.
So, tell us a little bit about your business. What do you do, Meredith?
Yeah, I'm a business attorney and a business broker. My law firm is called A Better Business, a law firm for entrepreneurs, and that name really encapsulates it. I represent entrepreneurs and small business owners. I help them with everything from starting a business to all the milestones along the way as you grow your business, all the way to sale.
Wow. How did the two of you meet? Was it through networking? Was it through...
Mountain bikes.
Yep. Mountain
bikes.
Yeah. Are you still training for your 5K, your Iron? Was it Ironman?
No.
No,
Spartan race.
Spartan race. Are you still training for that?
I am.
Yet another, Spartan races and mud races are a great example of when you might want an attorney. I love their they have what I call death waivers, where you get to the event and the waiver, it's the most incredible legal document I've ever seen. I know people who've done the Tough Mudder, not to pick on them or the Spartan race, but we got to the Tough Mudder and they said, okay, here you go, sign this. And like in giant bold letters, it says like, you're going to die. Like sign here that you acknowledge you're probably going to die. And you're not going to blame us or anybody else for your idiotic decision to do this today. Sign here, get to the start line. And all these people are like, yeah, that sounds great. I'm going to die. Like, sign here. And the lawyer in me is like, I am concerned for everybody here. I don't know if this is enforceable. Like, this is crazy. I don't think you can consent for somebody to kill you.
Oh, wow.
They make you sign it a couple times. You have to sign it online when you're registering, and then they make you sign it again when you show up.
Copy.
Yeah, a physical copy.
I understand that what I'm about to do is really stupid. The chances of me dying are high. You're going to shock me while I'm in the water, or depending on the race. I can only imagine being the attorney who gets the phone call from that business owner, and they're like, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put people in the water. I'm going to have live electrical wires hanging down. What piece of paper do I need them to sign to make this okay? Would have been like, oh man, I don't know if I want to be the attorney on this one.
Wow. Well, who if you don't want to be an attorney for them, who's a good client for you? Someone just kind of getting started, someone's been around.
Great question.
Someone like me who just kind of wings it.
Yeah. I represent everybody all along the business journey. And so most of my clients call me sometimes right before they start. They know they want to start a business. Maybe they're still at their job and they're making plans. And so they want to figure out, what do I need to do? What do I need to get ready to make this transition? So I help people start businesses. I help talk them through the process of exiting their current job. There are always things to think about there so you don't get in trouble by stealing materials or customers or whatever from your former employer. But a lot of people reach out to me some part of the way into their business journey. They've been doing it themselves. Maybe they formed their own LLC. Maybe they don't have an LLC yet, but they've been doing the thing for a little while, and they know they need to kind of come back and make sure they got it right.
Right.
But hey, a lot of us bootstrap our businesses. You got to make sure you've got a couple clients. You got to get a few dollars in the door before you can hire that attorney. And so I talk to a lot of people who are saying, I'm so sorry, I may have screwed this up. Please don't be mad at me. And I say, look, everybody calls me saying that. I'm not mad at you. I'm here to help you with exactly this.
Right.
So let's figure out where you are in the process, what steps you may have missed along the way, and get them caught up.
So in many aspects, should you be the first call when someone's thinking about starting a business? Or people wait too late?
You know, it really depends on the business. If you are running a burger franchise or an in-home daycare where you've got people coming into your business premises, you've got employees on day one, people can get injured the very first day you're open for business. I absolutely think you should talk to an attorney before you ever open your doors. If you are a portrait photographer, if you are, you know, a consultant who's doing, you know, some sort of consulting from behind your desk at home, your business is probably a little less risky. And so, you know, the ramifications for you taking on a few jobs before you talk to an attorney are going to be a lot lower risk. So it really depends on the risk in your industry.
Right.
If you've got a brick and mortar location, if there's a risk of injury, you know, nowadays there are so many different ways a business can look. It really depends on your risks and your risk tolerance.
There's something specifically that we had emailed to each other before today's show that you specifically wanted to talk about, the Corporate Transparency Act.
Yes, absolutely.
What is the Corporate Transparency Act?
we're gonna dig into this. Yes. So the Corporate Transparency Act, I am going to be
8 out of 10 business owners want to know.
10 out of 10 business owners should know. 8 out of 10 may want to know, but all 10 need to know.
Right.
Yeah. The Corporate Transparency Act is a new law that went into effect on January 1st, 2024, and it impacts nearly every business owner in the United States and even foreign business owners doing business in the United States. This is a massive change in corporate law, one of the biggest we've seen in my entire career. And it's a new federal law that requires business owners to register their businesses with the federal government. Until now, when you form a business, you form it in your state. You go to the Arizona Corporation Commission and you form your LLC. Well, this new law is creating a federal database of all of those businesses and who the individual people are that own and control them. Those are called the beneficial owners.
Okay.
And we're creating this registry because there are a lot of states in the United States where you don't have to disclose who the owners are. In Arizona, we do. So this isn't a huge difference for us. But there are a lot of states where people intentionally go, if they want to form an anonymous company, they don't want it to be easy for people to figure out who owns the company.
Right.
Well, that's what the federal government is now looking to get that information on. This is a crime-fighting law.
Oh.
So they're actually targeting people that are using anonymous shell corporations to do illegal things, to money launder or you know, whatever those crimes are. And when they go back through the entities, they can't figure out who are the people. We know this entity, we know this LLC is doing something wrong or this corporation, but we can't figure out who the people are that actually own and control it. We don't know who to go after.
Yeah.
So that was why this law was originally passed and why the penalties are so high. The penalty for willful failure to file this beneficial ownership information report, $591 a day.
Oof.
Those are the civil penalties. There's no cap on those. And then the criminal penalties are up to $10,000 and 2 years in federal prison.
Wow.
So this is something that every business owner needs to know about because they are not, you know, most of us are not doing anything wrong with our businesses. They're not coming after us. This is a simple registration requirement for the rest of us. But the federal government can't say, hey, criminals, register here. Everybody else, you're good.
Right.
Right? We all have to register. We all have to file a BOI report so that they can go, you know, when they go after the criminals, they can either have this information or hit them with these penalties for failure to file.
And when did you say the deadline? Did it already pass?
We're going to talk about that. There are three different three different deadlines we can dig into after the break. Exactly who is required to file, who the beneficial owners are, what the deadlines are, and I want to make sure everybody listening today walks away from this show understanding what they need to do and how important this is for their business.
So John, the engineer, when people call in, are they allowed to like muffle their voice? Because I bet you're going to get a lot of people that want to call. If you want to call with any questions for Meredith, 520-790-2040. I know, Candace, you have a ton of questions, so we'll get into those right after the break. Again, you're listening to the Marketing Corner, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you. And welcome back to the Marketing Corner. We are here with co-host Candace Eaton, special guest Meredith Martyr.
Am I not working?
Now you're working.
No. Well, fine.
I tricked you. No, I'm just kidding.
It's okay.
Yeah. Candace, you had a few questions for Meredith.
I do. Now that you've sufficiently scared the living daylights out of all of us, Meredith, thank you. So you said there are some deadlines upcoming that business owners are going to have to pay attention to. So could you let us know more about those, please?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, the Corporate Transparency Act is a federal law that went into effect on January 1st. But they're giving existing businesses a whole year to comply. So if your entity, your LLC or corporation was in existence before January 1st of this year, you've got until December 31st to file your BOI report.
Let me put that down, December 30th.
Yes, December 31st. Now, I would recommend not waiting until the end because there are about, I think they've estimated about 33 million businesses that are required to file this form. And I don't know what your level of confidence in the government website is. I am not confident that it is going to stay up
is that
on December 31st. I'm just saying that's a lot of traffic for December 31st. So I would not want to be the person trying to file my form on the last day if that portal crashes because of demand. So my recommendation is get this filed sooner. But that's for existing businesses. New businesses, if you form a new entity in 2024, if you formed an LLC or a corporation or another type of business entity this year, you only have 90 days from the date of formation to file. So you may be sitting here right now if you formed a new business earlier this year and you're already late. Those penalties might already be accruing. Yeah, so you're going to want to look into this right away. Go to fincen.gov to learn more. That's the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. FINCEN.gov and /BOI. That's where they've got all the information about this. Next year in 2025, if you form a new entity, they'll only give you 30 days to file this report.
Oh, wow.
So going forward in 2025 and beyond, this is just going to be part of forming a business. You go to form your LLC, you apply for your EIN from the IRS, and you file your BOI report with FinCEN. It's just going to be part of a normal formation process. But we're still in that first year where we're trying to get all the existing businesses registered. And so they've given folks this year a little bit more time with the 90 days and those existing businesses a full year.
Is this modeled after any other country, do you know of, Meredith? Or is
That's
this
a great
something
question.
unique?
I don't know. I don't know if other countries have this, but I know a lot of banks do. So a lot of my clients say to me, I already filed a beneficial ownership form. My bank asked me for it. I say, yes, you may have, but that was the bank's form. That's different from this federal government form.
Okay.
This is a brand new database that we're creating at FinCEN of all of these businesses. The good news is that this form is free to file. There is no cost to file this form. However, it is a little bit tricky to figure out if you're required to file, if any of the 23 exceptions apply to you, who your beneficial owners are. And that's where you may want to reach out to an attorney or refer to some of the free resources I've created that the federal government has to figure this out for yourself. So you either need to do your own legal research and figure out how this law applies to you, or you need to reach out to a professional like me and we can help you figure it out. But either way, if you have got a company, if you've got an LLC or a corporation, a partnership, any entity that's registered with the Arizona Corporation Commission or a similar division of corporations or Secretary of State in another state, you need to be paying attention to this law.
Awesome. That's tremendous information because I would imagine most business owners have kind of overlooked this or putting it off. Just
100%.
Kind of yeah. Until.
This law was passed on January 1st, 2021. And 5 days later, January 6th happened. And understandably, the national news media got a little distracted.
Yeah.
So this law has not really been covered that much in the media. Then it went into effect 3 years later. And now the deadline is intermixed with another very intense election cycle. So the news media just isn't, for better or worse, this is just not the highest priority news item, but it has huge, huge impacts on small business owners. So I'm on a mission to make sure every small business owner hears about it. I talk to all my friends about it. I talk to baristas at the coffee shop. I'm just going to be talking about this nonstop till December 31st.
Yeah. Kind of shifting gears just a little bit. I mean, when people are either first started, forming their business or have been in business for a few years, are there a few common errors or missteps that you see from your career, Meredith, that business owners can do a little bit better job of protecting themselves and their business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first mistake I see is they don't call me soon enough.
Yeah.
They assume that attorneys are scary. They assume that we're too expensive. They assume
it's going to be
too complicated.
You seem pretty nice.
Thank you.
I wore a polo today. I was going to come in a jersey today, and I was like, better not.
I'm meeting an attorney. I better have a collar.
Yeah. I even showered this morning.
Oh, wow.
The whole
Thank
9
you,
yards.
Sean. I feel very special.
If it was Steve Nunez, I just, rolled over and showed up.
Well, yes, I think for a lot of reasons, attorneys get a bad rap. And I'm not here to defend all attorneys. Not all attorneys need my defense. But as a business attorney, I'm not scary. I'm here to help you be successful. At the end of the day, I'm not the cops. I'm not, I'm not going to sue you. I don't do that. I'm here to help you figure out how to run your business. And so the biggest mistake I see is that people get far enough into business that now going back and documenting things gets a little complicated. Or they've taken on risks that they didn't fully understand. And not until they reach out to me or another attorney do they now realize, oh man, this lease really doesn't protect me. But I'm locked in it for another 3 years. So I got to wait, to the end of my lease term to get out of this.
Right.
And so my recommendation for business owners is the sooner you reach out to a business attorney, the better. It doesn't mean you have to hire them. It doesn't mean you have to spend money on them. But you don't know what you don't know. And I always say to my clients, it is always free to email me and say, hey, Meredith, I'm about to do blah, blah, blah. Do I need you for this? And I might say, great question. No, you actually need to talk to your CPA about that. Or great question, talk to your insurance broker. You don't need me for this. Or I'll say, absolutely, please do not sign that lease until we've reviewed it together and you understand what you're signing. And that's when, okay, now we're going to talk about the expense. Do you want to do a flat fee package? Do you want to do hourly? How much is this going to cost? How do we make this work within your budget? But as I say, it is always free to ask the question, do I need your help with this?
Yeah.
Because most business owners just don't know what they don't know. And you don't know enough to know what the risks are that you're taking on unless you ask a professional.
As a business owner, what are some questions, like if you and I first met, what are some questions I need to ask you as a business attorney before we move forward?
Oh, great question.
I have a few great questions today.
Yeah.
I'm out of them. So Candace, you need to.
Okay. Am I ever going to get to talk?
Yes.
Yes, after this.
So when I meet a business owner, obviously I'm gathering some information about you, about what type of entity you run. I alluded to this, in our first segment before the break, that it's a very different risk if you're running an in-home daycare than if you're a graphic designer that works from home. So I'm going to very quickly get a sense for, okay, you have these different types of risks than another business client. But I think the most important question a business owner can ask of an attorney, of a CPA, of an insurance broker is, what don't I know? What risks am I not seeing? What should I be asking you about? Because I see 10 risks that aren't even on your brain to ask about.
Not on a radar.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And so I recommend you should always finish any call with an attorney or a professional saying, what didn't I ask about that you think I should be worried about?
Wow. Yeah.
Or what's the next thing coming down the pike? Let's say we draft a contract together and now we're done with that project. An ideal client says to me, okay, thank you so much for this. What's the next moment you can see where I will need your help? When should I reach out to you next? And I may say, well, if you get ready to sign that lease, if you decide to hire an employee, give me a call back, right? I'm going to tell you for your business, what are those milestones where you're going to need to remember to reach out?
Okay. So you work with a lot of small business owners, me being one of them. And as small business owners go, we are kind of tightwads. And we try to DIY all the stuff.
Yep.
So just for funsies, what is one of the things that you see most small business owners coming to you having DIY'd and now realizing that they may have not made a solid choice in that?
Yeah. Great question. Okay. So I would say probably the number one is their contract with their clients.
Okay.
That is the number one thing that I have people call me. They're starting a business and they say to me without fail, I downloaded a form off the internet, or I got a form from some friend of mine who's in the industry and they've been using it with their business and they're fine. So this should work for me. And I just want you to look it over. And this is quickly followed by, and then it ends up being 1 page, maybe 2 pages. And I just had a client last week who said, I said, this has some of the things you need, but it's missing a lot. And he said, well, I took out all the things I didn't understand. Oh. I said, yeah, well, that's those were there to protect you. Those were there for a reason. How about we come at this from a different perspective? Well, how about I explain them? Let's put them back in and I'll walk you through what they mean. And so I think that is probably the biggest. There are plenty of DIY things. And this is a great question, but I think that's the biggest one, that you need a contract with your client. You feel like the cost is going to be so big you can't afford it. And so you pull something off the internet. Look, AI, ChatGPT, the internet in general has come a long way in the 15 years I've been practicing law. I use it. I continue to check in with it as it evolves. And it's not an attorney yet. And the contracts that ChatGPT is kicking out keep me awake at night. I mean, it's like a 5th grader who read, like the section in their like social studies book about law and then came up with what they thought a contract looked like. AI is going to get better and better, but the internet has so much information out there. There are good contract forms out there for sure. And there are terrible ones. And unfortunately, if you're not an attorney, you don't know how to distinguish between those. And so when it comes to DIY, you can absolutely make the decision to take that risk as long as you understand you're taking that risk. But as soon as you've got some money to invest, I definitely recommend reaching out to an attorney to say, hey, I know this. I know I pulled this off the internet. Can we fix this? Can we put a new one in place that protects me a little bit better and is actually customized for my business?
Yeah. This is some good stuff, Candace.
What's your favorite DIY when they come to you and you're like, oh, Lord?
Definitely the way that people revise their own documents, like what they think they understand a contract to be is definitely, it's like, oh, well, that's one way. That is one way to do it, But there are, I get it. I'm a small business owner too, and you have to make tough decisions about your budget. That's part of why I created my business. It's why I offer flat fees. It's why, why I'm in business to specifically support small business owners, because I never want cost to be the reason you aren't asking the question or you're choosing not to protect yourself, your business, and your assets.
Yeah. As we head into the second break, can we get into more about your journey as a small business owner too? I'm very curious about that. You've been in practice for yourself for about 6-7 years now?
Almost 6 years, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to ask you a little bit about that after the break.
Sounds
You're
great.
listening to The Marketing Corner. And we are back in the second half of The Marketing Corner today with special guest Meredith Martyr and one of my best buddies, my co-host today, Candace Eaton.
Still here.
Still here.
Still here. They haven't thrown me out yet.
Not yet. Meredith, you mentioned before last break that you've had your own practice now for about 5-6 years now.
Yeah, it'll be 6 years in January.
So let's talk about that journey. What inspired you to start your own firm? What are some of the things that you did well? And if you don't mind, what is some of the friendly advice from maybe some of the missteps that you would give an aspiring entrepreneur to not make that same, create that same speed bump for themselves?
Yeah. Before I started my own law firm, I worked for bigger law firms. When I got out of law school, I clerked on the Arizona Supreme Court, and then I went to one of the oldest law firms, or the oldest law firm in Arizona, worked at a big law firm for several years, and then went to a regional Tucson-based law firm, slightly smaller. And after about a decade in law, I loved working with business owners. I especially loved working with startup small business owners. And the issue I ran into is that at bigger firms, they have minimum requirements. You have to be a certain size client in order to work with them, or you have to be able to put down a $5,000 or $10,000 retainer to work with them. And that was a real problem for clients who just need to start an LLC. If you need $750 worth of legal work, why would you need to put $5,000 on retainer with me to get that? And so it was a mismatch, you know, to be at a larger firm. Nothing wrong with those firms, but you know what, the clientele that they're designed to serve is at a much higher price point than a lot of the small business owners that I wanted to work with in Tucson, in my community. I love working with small business owners. I love that I get coffee at a client's coffee shop. I love going and getting a beer at a client's brewery. I love going to a restaurant or going to a hair salon or going, you know, wherever it is in Tucson. And I walk in and I know the owners and I help them get that lease and I help them open their business. And I was invited to a grand opening later today for one of my clients. At the same time, last month, one of my clients sold their business and we got to celebrate that journey, you know, the completion of that journey. So for me, I love the fact that the work I do helps the people in my community. And I needed to be able to do that at an affordable price point and in an accessible way. And so going out on my own was the easiest way to do that. Get rid of all that overhead of having an office and a conference room and a full staff and, you know, being able to litigate. You know, I really specialized in small business owners. And there are some colleagues of mine who said, you know, Meredith, this sounds crazy. You can't run a law firm without a conference room. You know, people need a physical location to come and meet you. And I said, I don't know if that's true. You know, my clients all work at their own businesses. They want to just pick up the phone and call me. They want to just be able to text me. They want to just have the answer to their question arrive in their inbox so they can forward that document on to whoever's waiting on it. And I actually don't think they want to schlep down to my office downtown and sit in a wood-paneled conference room thinking, gosh, how much an hour is going towards this conference room? Right. So to your point, Candace, small business owners have tight budgets. You don't want to pay for anything you don't need. And I know that those dollars have more important places to be, especially if you're going to be putting them into marketing, hiring your first team member, growing your business. I do not want to take any more money than I need to that's going to impede your growth. So I went out on my own, opened my own business, and a year later the pandemic happened, and it turned out all that conference room space that my colleagues had was sitting empty, and I was very fortunate that I hit, you know, when the pandemic hit, I was already an entirely online firm. Every single one of my clients was impacted by the pandemic. Not a single one of them did not at least have a question. What happens to my lease? What do I do about this? You know, they were either business was booming or business was dying, and there were issues. And I was able to just seamlessly, you know, pick that up, answer those questions, serve them, and it didn't matter at all that we were all online.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't come up with a question.
I didn't answer your question
I don't know.
about sort of success and advice. I've been very fortunate that I had the opportunity to grow my book of business, my relationships in Tucson in that decade that I practiced law here, and I went out on my own. Not everybody is as fortunate as that. You know, I've been able to grow my business largely through referrals and word of mouth, and I haven't had to do a lot of external marketing. And I think that is the piece that I see so many people trip up on. It's why it's so wonderful that this show exists. You know, I think you guys are creating really important resources here for people, because so many people come to me and they say, hey, I'm really good at this thing. I'm an expert at physical therapy. I'm an expert at photography. I'm an expert at whatever it is, graphic design. I keep picking on graphic designers today, but we'll just use graphic design for some reason. You know, I really know my service area. I know I am an expert at my thing. And the biggest challenge I see is being good and having a service that people want and telling the people that service is available is the gap. So you may be amazing at what you do, but if people don't know you're out there doing it, how are they going to find you? How is your business going to grow? And I think it's not that I made this mistake. I was very fortunate that I spent the time building this network. And when I went out on my own, I've been very fortunate that I have been able to grow through referrals. But I would say if I could go back and do anything, not that I would necessarily have done this knowing the pandemic was coming. But I didn't really start with a full marketing plan. You know, I've backed my way into that as I've continued to grow. But I didn't need a full marketing plan on day one because I was coming with some existing clients and connections. And I recognize that that's not most small business owners' experience.
But do you have a question, Candace?
I do, actually. So we wanted to chat a little bit about the In the Hot Seat where you're going to be a panelist on Tuesday at the Arizona Sands Club at 4:30 p.m. We are discussing going out and defining your own success and building a business and a life that you've defined on your own. And you kind of touched on this before, that you walked away from the way we've always done it and created your own thing and your own path, and you are wildly successful in your own right.
Yep.
And so was there a moment? Like, was there a moment along the line where you were like, the way we've always done it isn't working for me. It's not the way I want to do it. And darn it, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do it my way and I'm going to make it work. Like, was there like a switch that flipped, or
there was a final straw. There was a final switch.
We've all had those.
Yes.
I've had those. You've been there for those.
I knew all along, even at my first firm, and it was part of why I left that firm and went to the second, that my small business clients needed a different type of service. They needed flat fee packages and sort of the certainty of knowing what the bill was going to be. They needed smaller retainers. They needed cheaper services where they didn't have to hit a certain dollar threshold. So I knew that that was a mismatch. I also knew that the way we were delivering those services, where you had to come in and meet with us in person before you could engage us and then scan something back as opposed to docu-signing the engagement letter, all of those things were ways that I could improve client service. But I think for me, to your question about when you decide to do it your own way, unfortunately, my brother passed away my last year at the firm, and I had been thinking about going out on my own, but I had this idea in my head that it was going to be so expensive. It was going to be so difficult to do that on my own. And what if nobody followed me? What if I didn't have any clients on day one? And it wasn't until my brother died, and I, obviously was not expecting that, but I inherited some money from his death. And it was a small amount of money, but it was enough that I could use that as the cushion to fall on my face if I could, if I had to.
Right.
And that was, so for me, that was the final straw. When that happened, I was like, okay, Meredith, what are you waiting for? You've been not doing this for years because it felt too scary financially. Right. And now here is this little gift that you can go fall on your face and you'll still be able to pay your bills for the next 6 months or a year. Right. Go do it. And that was it. I was out of excuses at that point. The last excuse I was using was that financial stress and not, we'll call it a silver lining. There's no silver lining to your sibling passing away, but it was the final push I needed to say, okay.
But it was the thing he left behind.
It was the thing he left behind to say, go do this.
Yeah.
Go do this.
Go do it.
Yep.
You live.
Yeah. Yep. And gratefully, I didn't need that. I didn't fall flat on my face, but that cushion gave me the confidence to do it. And I think so many small business owners don't have that. I recognize that. But I think that is, that little bit of money that you can squirrel away, or whether you get a business grant or whether you get a loan or whether you have an initial investor, that money is more than just the money you use for startup.
Right.
That money represents a huge bet you are placing on yourself.
Yeah.
And that bet is what I love most of all. It's why I'm in this business. I love watching people bet on themselves. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, it goes spectacularly well. Yeah. And even that 10th time, usually if it doesn't go well, they end up in some other job using those same skills, saying, hey, I just ran my business. They even failure doesn't necessarily mean failure. Right. And I love getting to have a front row seat to that journey, watching people bet on themselves, watching people grow this business. And then a few years later, they're going, Meredith, can you believe we're celebrating our 5-year anniversary? Can you believe we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary? Hey, Meredith, I just got an offer to buy this business. You're never going to believe how many millions they want to give me. What can you believe that, do you remember when we just started this LLC? I say, I sure do.
Yeah.
That's really fantastic.
There's so many lessons that you provided that I want to touch upon it during our last segment. But this is unbelievable stuff. I hope everybody's getting a lot. If you need any need to ask Meredith any questions, 520-790-2040. We'll be right back. I am saved by coming back from the break right now. You have no idea what we're talking about. I'm glad we're back on the air right now, Candace.
Before the conversation was going sideways
before
real
we
fast.
get into this last part, I need to give a special thanks to John, our engineer. Thank you so much. David Bradley, Medicare A to Z. Candace, of course, Seaton Photography. Our new sponsor, Jamar Jordan, he's a tax specialist. Roger LaFay Processing. Danny McPadden from Last Bridge Media. And Mark Weiss, Sales Performance Strategies. Next week, we got Mark Enzor, owner of Geeks to You Computer Repair. Co-host will be Roger LaFay. So one thing I want to say real quick before I hand it over to you, Candace, is I don't know if you knew that the lesson that you just gave all the audience right now is in Tucson, whenever I'm in an initial marketing consultation, no matter what, potential strategies there may be, whether it's social, SEO, a new website or whatever it is, I tell everybody, it's like your reputation here in Tucson is gold.
100%.
And your first job as an entrepreneur or small business owner is to shake hands, kiss babies, and become 1 degree away from everybody. And your passion, your enthusiasm, Meredith, I could see why you're successful.
Thank you.
You may not have this humongous presence online, but here in Tucson, your name, I'm sure
It strikes fear in the hearts of the other attorneys in town.
That's good. I want all the business owners to like me and the other attorneys to fear me. That's good.
But
I've looked at other people's attorneys and they're like, "Who's your attorney?" Meredith Martyr. Her.
But you can tell, I mean, you're so approachable, you're so enthusiastic, you have so much passion, and I could tell that this is all genuine.
Yeah.
So.
It is. Thank you. And
thank you.
And I think that's absolutely true. Your reputation, this is more true now. I'm old enough that I remember when the first computer showed up in my house. I didn't get my first, cell phone till I was in college. So I predate social media. I'm old enough that I predate all of that. But even back then, my mom really hammered into me that, your reputation is everything and you can't get it back once you lose it. And I came to Tucson and I went to law school here. Yeah. I intentionally chose U of A. I applied early. I knew this is where I wanted to be, where I wanted to set up my practice. And I came to the U of A because I wanted to be in Tucson and invest in this community. And it's been a glorious 15 years. And my biggest problem now is that people do refer me, and I have to say, I'm so sorry, I already represent the other party.
Good problem.
Yes, if you can't actually lease from my client, I actually represent the other person on this side. But let me send you the names of some other attorneys in town.
Yeah.
So, we were talking a little bit on the break about intimidation, and you said you want to be scary to all the other attorneys, but not to all not all the small business owners. So, and some people they don't reach out to an attorney because they feel like it can be intimidating, and some attorneys do sort of give off that stuffed shirt sort of bougie vibe that people just are like, that's not me. And so how do you approach that, and how do you help people get past the whole new
100%.
Attorneys?
I literally I put myself on social media. I now am on TikTok. I'm making TikTok videos every day for this exact purpose of showing people that attorneys aren't scary, that we are just normal people like you who went to law school and can, I am just a professional in this thing. I'm just like your doctor or your insurance broker or a photographer. You're the expert when it comes to taking photos, Candace. I'm not going to tell you how to take the photo, how to light the photo, how to frame the photo. You have to come to an attorney as a fellow professional to say, what guidance do you have for me? And I think you're right. There are a lot of attorneys who are a little heavy-handed in saying to people, this is how you have to do it. And you're getting it wrong if you aren't doing it this way. I do not take that approach at all. Every small business owner has the right. This is why I love small business. You get to chart your own destiny.
Yeah.
You get to build the business you want. You get to decide which things you're going to pull in professionals to advise you on, which things you're going to DIY, how you want to invest every dollar. And for me as a business attorney, I am never going to shame anybody for calling me 3 years into their business or 5 years into their business and saying, why didn't you call me on day one?
Right.
I'm so happy you're here. Congratulations on growing to the point that you're ready to bring me into this process. Let's get started.
Yeah.
And I really think that no business owner should be shamed for the choices they've made. My job is just to be an advisor and help you understand the risks you're facing so you can decide, is it time for me to invest in Meredith helping me draft this contract? Or do I want to wait till that next job is over and I'll do it then? That's why I offer free consults. I have insisted on there being free consults There, you can book a free consult on my website, and I will keep them free because I never want the fear of cost to be the reason someone doesn't pick up the phone and have a conversation with an attorney, to at least figure out, what do I need a budget for this? So you can decide when to make that happen.
Yeah.
So you said you're on TikTok. You have a social
yes.
media presence. I see your videos come across my
What's
feed
the
regularly.
handle? How can we find you?
a.better.biz.
Okay.
A better biz.
So there's a lot of people on TikTok giving bad advice,
gosh.
and like bad legal advice,
Incorrect.
bad financial
Incorrect
advice.
Yep, 100%.
And so how does someone who's seeing all these videos and people giving them advice on social media, how does someone pick through the good stuff and the useful stuff and the incorrect or just generally bad advice?
Yep. This is another reason I'm on social media, because the amount of incorrect information that people come to me on an initial call, they're repeating back to me, is insane. So you are correct. There is a lot of incorrect advice. And my best guidance on this is pay attention to who is speaking. Do not take legal advice from a non-attorney. There are tons of attorneys on TikTok. Go find an attorney. There's another attorney out there who's a labor and employment specialist. I think his name's Attorney Ryan. If I were getting fired from a job, I would go to Attorney Ryan's page, because he is an attorney who specifically helps employees who've been terminated from their jobs. If you are looking for tax advice, go to a CPA. If you're going to go find somebody online, make sure that the person you're listening to is a professional and they work in this area. There are a lot of business coaches trying to give people information about the Corporate Transparency Act. There are even CPAs doing it incorrectly. This is a legal issue. The Corporate Transparency Act, there is so much misinformation about it. And if it were me, if I were going to try and DIY a legal education online, I would absolutely make sure I was listening to real attorneys, and I would pay attention to what type of attorneys they are. You also don't want a criminal defense attorney telling you about the Corporate Transparency Act, just like you don't want me telling you about how to handle your DUI. I am not qualified to do that.
Well, that handles my next question.
But I think it's a really good point, because there is so much good information out there, but it's hard to know what to trust. And so be very mindful that you're paying attention to the source. And even if you hear something on a business person's podcast, come over to my page and see if it's true. Come ask me a question. I answer lots and lots of user questions. In fact, 99% of my content is answering the questions that I get in my comments. So come ask a business attorney like me, hey, I heard this on whatever podcast. Is this true? Okay. And we'll tell you.
That's good.
You realize you and I had similar strategies when I first started my business in finding that underserved market. Was that intentional? Was that you kind of fell into it, or?
Absolutely intentional. I saw how many small business owners didn't feel supported at the beginning of the process.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you're selling your business for $50 million, you're going to find an attorney who's happy to help you with that. No, you're not going to have any issue.
Right.
but if you are starting a small physical therapy practice out of your home, it's going to be really challenging to figure out who to call. And who to ask those initial questions. Do I need insurance? Do I need a business license? Do I need an LLC? What's an S Corp? Those are really normal questions, and it's hard to figure out who to ask those questions of. And that's what I'm here for. It's why I create so many free resources. It's why I create free content on social media. I believe that business ownership is a fundamental human right. It is the path for people who have been excluded from traditional career paths, traditional education. It is the one way that, regardless of how many degrees you have, regardless of how much money you have, if you can provide a service or you can create a product, you can go out and make money. You can go out and start a business. And that ability to make your own business, create your own path in this world as an entrepreneur, I believe is a fundamental human right.
Right.
And so I want the information about how to do this correctly to be available to as many people as possible.
That's awesome.
That really is fantastic. I appreciate how you focus on the small business owners, and Tucson is a fantastic place to be doing this with. Like, we have the highest per capita small locally owned business rate in the entire country.
Oh, I didn't know that. But
yeah,
I love that. It makes sense to me. We certainly have an amazing small business community.
For the size of our city, we have more mom and pop shops than any other city in the country.
I love that.
So this is a great place for you to be and helping people out. And I personally love referring people to you.
Thank you. I appreciate your referrals.
In the last 2 minutes, Meredith, you talked about a lot of wins. What's been your biggest win so far?
My biggest win is that I wake up when I feel like it without an alarm. I start my day later in the morning because that's when my brain turns on.
Yeah.
I get to work in an office where my dogs are asleep on the couch across from me. I've run my business from all my travels. I spent a month in Europe last summer.
Nice.
I sailed down the Nile, literally, answering client emails, sailing down the Nile. And I don't mean that like I'm working on all my vacations, but being able to create my own business has given me the freedom, as Candace said, to define success in the way I want to. And now, instead of billing 2,000 hours a year, working 60, 80-hour weeks, having to be at the office at 8 a.m., having to deal with, a whole bunch of things that are normal for a workplace, but I didn't want to deal with anymore.
Yeah.
I love my days. I love my job. I love my clients.
Yeah.
And for me, that is the biggest win of all.
Yeah. If someone needs to get a hold of you and talk to you as a result of this show, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
abetterbusiness.com.
Okay.
There is a link right there where you can book a free initial consult with me. You can learn about all the BOI stuff. I've got a page that will educate you more about this law and connect you to some free resources. Created a free BOI quiz that will run you through the questions to figure out if you're required to file, if any of the exceptions apply to you, who your beneficial owners are.
Wow.
All of that's at abetterbusiness.com.
Awesome. Any last words, Candace Eaton from Seaton Photography?
Yeah, I don't really know. Like, that was a really great conversation.
Yeah. And
Thank you for your
congratulations.
referrals.
Yeah, congratulations on your big win recently.
Oh, yeah.
That was great.
It's been a good couple months around here.
Yeah.
Calendar contests are finally almost done with the calendar contest this year.
And it's such a joy to get to be here with you and see one of my clients succeed,
There
right?
we go.
It's been a joy to watch your business growth and success the last few years. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for chiming in today. We'll see you next week on the Marketing Corner.